Berlin, April 1945. The once mighty capital of Hitler's empire now trembled beneath constant thunder. Artillery rumbled day and night, shaking shattered buildings, collapsing roofs, and echoing through empty streets. Smoke hung endlessly above the city, turning daylight into a dim gray twilight. Civilians huddled in cellars, while soldiers without hope prepared to fight a battle they already knew was lost. This was not just the end of a city, it was the end of an idea, an empire, and a nightmare. For nearly 6 years, Nazi Germany had terrorized Europe. Armies marched across borders, cities burned, and millions suffered under brutal occupation. But now, everything had reversed. The giant that once seemed unstoppable had been crushed step by step. Stalingrad, Kursk, Normandy, the Ardennes, until German forces were driven back to where it all began. Berlin was surrounded, and no miracle was coming. The Soviet Red Army closed in from every direction. Inside the city, chaos reigned. Ruins stretched as far as the eye could see. Streets were filled with rubble, wrecked tanks, horse carts, and terrified civilians searching for food or shelter. Electricity failed, water lines burst, and hospitals overflowed with wounded soldiers and crying children. Yet propaganda broadcasts still claimed victory was near, insisting that Germany would rise again. Deep down, everyone knew the truth. This was the final chapter. In the massive Reich Chancellery bunker complex beneath Berlin, Adolf Hitler clung to delusions. He barked impossible orders to divisions that no longer existed, shouting at generals who could not save him. Maps on the walls showed units that had already been destroyed. Food was running out. Air smelled of smoke, moisture, and despair. Even those closest to Hitler whispered that the war was lost, but he refused to surrender. Above ground, the sound of the Soviet guns grew closer each hour. Every explosion sent dust raining from ceilings. Buildings collapsed like sand castles beneath waves of fire. The Battle of Berlin was ruthless and personal, block by block, street by street, house by house. Soviet soldiers fought to end the war. German defenders fought because they feared surrender, because they were ordered to, or because they had nowhere left to run. Teenage boys were handed rifles and told to defend the fatherland. Old men who had already served in the last war were dragged into battle again. Many never fired a weapon. Some never even made it to the front line. The desperation of the regime had turned into tragedy for its own people. Meanwhile, SS units executed anyone who tried to flee. Escape was considered betrayal. Civilians faced a nightmare of their own. Families hid in basements, praying the walls would hold. Mothers tried to calm children trembling in silence. Every distant boom meant someone else's street was being destroyed. Every nearby explosion meant their own might be next. Firefighters could no longer handle the flames. Whole neighborhoods burned without resistance, swallowed by endless bombardment. By late April, Soviet forces stormed deeper into the city. The Brandenburg Gate, the Reichstag, and central districts became battlegrounds. Tanks rolled over barricades made of furniture, bricks, and anything desperate hands could find. Machine gun fire echoed through empty avenues. The once glorious monuments of Berlin stood scarred and broken as symbols of a dying regime. Inside the bunker, Adolf Hitler's world collapsed. Allies abandoned him, commanders confessed defeat, and the truth he refused to face became undeniable. Germany had lost. The vision of a 1,000-year Reich ended in a concrete underground room beneath a ruined city. On April 30th, Adolf Hitler took his own life. The man who brought war to the world could not face its consequences. When the news spread through Berlin, reactions were mixed. Some were stunned, some were relieved, others refused to believe it. But it changed nothing on the battlefield. The fighting continued fiercely as Soviet forces pushed into the city center. Every remaining defender was ordered to stand to the last man. Many did, many more surrendered. The Reichstag became one of the final symbolic battlegrounds. Soviet soldiers fought intensely through its shattered halls, climbing staircases through dust and smoke. By the time they reached the roof, hundreds had fallen. But raising the red flag above Berlin meant more than victory in battle. It marked the defeat of Nazism at its birthplace, in the heart of its power. As the red flag waved in the smoky air, resistance collapsed. One unit after another surrendered. Some wept, some stared blankly, unable to accept defeat. For many civilians, surrender meant survival. They emerged from basements blinking at daylight they had not seen in days, stepping into a world of devastation. The war in Europe was finally ending. On May 2nd, Berlin officially fell. The city was silent except for distant gunfire and the sound of boots marching through rubble. Soviet soldiers searched buildings, gathered prisoners, and began the massive task of restoring order. The once powerful Nazi capital now lay in ruins. Streets were unrecognizable, bridges had collapsed, railways were twisted heaps of metal. In those first days after surrender, Berlin did not feel like a city. It felt like a wound, raw, painful, and uncertain if it would ever heal. But even among devastation, life refused to disappear. People began clearing debris, sharing food, helping strangers, comforting each other. Humanity slowly resurfaced after years of fear. Across the world, news spread fast. Crowds filled streets in London, New York, Moscow, Paris, and beyond. Bells rang, flags waved, people cried, hugged, and celebrated. Nazi Germany, the empire that once threatened the world, was gone. Millions paid the price, but tyranny had finally been defeated. The fall of Berlin remains history's most powerful lessons. It shows how pride, hatred, and absolute power can build an empire of destruction, and how, inevitably, such an empire collapses. Every shattered building, every scarred street, every silent house in Berlin whispered the same truth. No regime built on oppression can last forever. History remembers the bravery of those who resisted, the sacrifice of soldiers who fought to end the war, and the suffering of innocents trapped in between. The fall of Berlin was not just an ending, it was a warning written in smoke and blood, a message echoing through time. Never let this happen again. And so, in May 1945, as silence finally replaced gunfire and a broken city looked toward an uncertain future, one thing was undeniable. The Nazi Empire had died in the very city where it believed itself invincible. Berlin had fallen. The world had changed forever.